So today we're going to look at some of the internships that I've recommended in the past and how to apply for those, how to go about going through and getting this whole applications process set up. So I have mentioned in the past that by January, some internships have already taken a hike, so they've already closed for the following summer. One of those is the one that's the Yale Conservation Scholars out of Yale University. That closes in December for the following year. So the earlier you're looking at this stuff and starting to compile your list and starting to think about what am I going to do 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, the more likely you are to find something that's going to be able to be a good experience and be one that's going to build your overall experience for the work world within the sciences. So I'm using marine biology in general here, but this I would say works for all STEM fields in general. I mean, I know when we really want to filter, you filter, by putting things up a little bit earlier, and then you have the people that are already looking ahead or have already been thinking about how to go about this. They're going to have already planned in. That doesn't mean that there aren't necessarily still internships that are available that have February or March or even April dates for the summer internship. It's just that there will be a little bit more competition for those than there would be for some of the earlier ones. Again, because you're going to find that those earlier dates, you're automatically looking for those people who are on top of their game and really already looking. So if you look at my Substack, so you should be able to find my Substack. I would probably already put this up. So also find me on LinkedIn, and you can then look at my most recent work. Yep, here we go. If you'd like to subscribe, it's there. I do offer a couple of different just opportunities to converse with me directly. I also offer a monthly call where we sometimes bring on some additional folks and we talk about the different subjects of, getting in science, staying in science, getting back into science quite generally. So you should be able to find the most recent post here. And it's going to give you a little bit more. But like as another example for HHMI, Howard Hughes Medical Institute, this was another one that was December 22nd of last year at this point. So if we're thinking about these ahead of time, these are things that will show up as really incredible opportunities. Now, when I was in school, the earliest dates would be the very, very beginning of the year. It's only more recently where I'm starting to see end of the previous year for the following summer. But I understand. I understand that they would be wanting to consider those folks and then interview them in the very first part of the year and have their pick. So when we're thinking about this whole process, I've written a little bit about what you should be able to find. You know, you need to make sure that you have two letters of recommendation. I don't necessarily say that those have to be in science. Those need to be two people who really understand your ability to learn, your ability to take in new information, your ability to work with teams, your ability to, work in general. I do think that that's a really important consideration, especially for undergraduates. And even for folks who are getting back into this, like, okay, you worked as a data analyst for a company for 5 years and you want to get a toe back into science. Well, somebody who's known you for 5 years is going to have a better opinion of you and a more recent analysis of you than somebody who knew you 10, 15 years ago. So, this is something to think about. But, one of the ones that's coming up right away is this Gulf of Maine Research Institute. This is one that would be a really cool internship to go to because this is a organization that does lots of different things. So when you go to their main page, you kind of see, okay, we've got a main landing page. They've got this research experience for undergraduates award, which automatically means it's going to be pretty well paid. They want to make sure that you're going to get in, really great experience and potentially funnel you right into graduate school and some fulfilling careers. I still work with some of my former interns. These are folks who've gone on now and gotten their PhDs, gotten their master's degree, or started working in the field in general. And we still talk and work together. So this is an important part, not just for that, but also for the long-term career mentorship. So if you look at this, though, it did actually open at the end of last year. So this is important to consider as you're going through. And again, if you think you have a bunch of these things, apply for it. But I always tell folks to also look at whether this is going to be possible for you. So, okay, they've got it looks like a presentation day at the end. They're going to be able to pay $600 a week for 10 weeks. That's $6,000. They are including a housing, which is great, and a meal allowance. So that automatically makes this an attractive opportunity because housing these days, you'd be talking, especially in Maine for the summer, would be $2,000 a month. So that's pretty incredible. So the fact that they have housing available and that they're providing some meal allowance, $100 a week won't necessarily go far, but it is something that will help to do that. And they've got some travel support to help get you there, which is really cool. So, these are, typically you want to make sure that you're 100% available for this entire time period. So that's the other consideration. If you're not available during a certain part of it, you need to contact them. So is it possible to start a little earlier? Is it start, are you going to get some background information ahead of time? Those are important considerations before you apply. So if we go to the application itself, um, this in particular is an NSF ETAP activity. So you are going to go in and look at this rapidly warming region. This is one that is particularly important for the fact that the Gulf of Maine is ramping up, and you would look at applying now. So to do this, you're going to go ahead and access this particular education and training application. You're going to sign in, create an account, and you can watch these videos on how to do this in this system at that point. So to be able to go back and look at a couple of other types of internships, I want to make sure that you're, making sure that you're feeling comfortable going for this. I am happy to walk people through, though that takes a little bit more investment on your part. And this is again a really, really great opportunity. The second one I wanted to go through because there are a lot of really good opportunities is the AZA site. So the Association of Zoos and Aquariums has a jobs portal. And this is where, at least we would, if we were to offer a job as remote ecologists by our nonprofit, we would post these up here. So you can typically filter this by type, internship, and usually just kind of scroll down at that point. Let's go ahead and look at one that, there are some really incredible uh, internships for folks who are interested in exhibit design and scientific illustration. I've had some students that have gone on to do scientific illustration, one that designed our logo for remote ecologist. And these are some really good pieces to look at. If you wanted to become an aquarist someday, you should do an aquarist internship. So that is the way into working in this field, is actually physically going and doing this for like 10 weeks and working directly with an organization like the Tennessee Aquarium in this instance would be a fantastic opportunity to get lots of different kinds of experience. A place like Shad Aquarium in Chicago has several different kinds of internships. So this looks like, okay, well, this is in animal care. There's also some wetlands research in the immediate vicinity of Lake Michigan. So if I were to go into here and take a look at this specific one, because this would be a research-based one, they're going to have the full description, $17 an hour. We can kind of scroll through and kind of very quickly scan and see, okay, if there's this self-motivated person, looks like they'll be scheduled for 30 hours a week. So you do some back of envelope math. That, and again, there would be the ability to kind of look at whether this is possible for you also has to consider being able to live in the location you're doing the work. So, $17 an hour might get you there. But we are talking about, approximately looking at around, five, $600 a week. Is that going to get you there? So those are important questions. But again, like this is also some incredible work to be able to go and, specifically go and do work in the field. So these are good opportunities to get your foot in the door. The one I talked about on the uh, website most recently was the San Diego Zoo opportunity, which I'm not seeing up here. This is also, showing that you need to be able to go through and do this regularly. One that I didn't actually do was conservation job board, which is a really, really incredible resource as well. So if we were to go into looking for job filters and we just said, you know what, I'm a student, I'm looking for a let's do paid, just do paid internship. And we're looking for something specific. Well, there are some really incredible internships here within the conservation field in general, and can be some really incredible ways to work. I happen to know a little bit about this particular funder. So Nui Pick is one that's uh, does some work in Long Island Sound. So there, in this case, is a Lake Champlain Education Outreach Steward, $19 an hour. You don't need to have any experience, but wow, like it's great. There'd be a really great chance to do some exhibits and it's 40 hours a week in Grand Isle and Burlington, Vermont. So they could potentially get you out and about in the immediate area. It has some specific requirements. And, again, this is a really good organization that does a lot of really great funding up the watershed of Long Island Sound and in the Northeast in general. So being able to speak to that is a really important thing. But you can also say, you know what, I need to be close to home. Let's say I need to be in Connecticut, Rhode Island, or Massachusetts for the summer. I got to be close to mom and dad. And looking through this, okay, now we've got a few different types of programs. So there's a conservation programs intern for the Westerly Land Trust in Rhode Island. There is a seasonal, again, educational internship around ecology. Typically this is looking at what we can glean from the description. There is a computational biology fellowship for the summer in at the USDA out of it looks like Kingston, Rhode Island, so at the University of Rhode Island's campus. And it's a USDA funded position. And looking at the effects, looking at how Eastern oyster farming in the Northeast is doing, essentially conducting some research that's going to facilitate the genetic improvement of traits that are going to be good for the Northeast region. Speaking of that, looking at ways that one could grow oysters further upstream or in areas that might be not as desirable, but still get the same phenotype at the end. Wow, that'd be really incredible. So seems like that's going to have some really great, independent research and some additional pieces that could start. This is actually one that seems to start very quickly. So they're looking at a flexible start date. So if some of you have the ability to do an internship in the spring, this might be something that could be available. So, but it may also be kind of cycling through. So it's something to think about when it comes to like the how to apply stuff. There will be some link there. But looking through the rest of these opportunities, there are some really good ones. Going back to some of the other applications I had up here, we've got Hopkins Marine Station. This is out of Stanford University. They have their summer undergraduate research funds. And this is one that, again, they're going to support people for full-time effort. They're going to They have some housing available. I would see whether the housing is waived or not, or whether you're paying it out of your $8,500. And look, there's a June 22nd through August 15th. Now we saw that other one was earlier June, ending August 7th. So again, this kind of comes back to the expectation that one would be on site for the full time. And again, it's a really incredible way to get some incredible experiences. They've got, in this case, the specific projects that are already up and listed. So the Block Lab has a couple of different types of work that are going on. So that it looks like they've got some computational stuff and some eDNA work. This might be for an undergraduate who is a little bit more experienced, but hey, you might be able to find something that's really specific to you. It looks like there's some sea turtle comparative analyses that's going on. There's some work around schistosomiasis, the tropical disease. Again, like thinking about, like, always look at these specifics. Having some proficiency in R and Python is just needed now. You should be able to crunch through those things. Having a little bit of GIS experience. These are courses that I recommend undergraduates take. These are things I wish I had gotten as an undergrad anyway. To have the ability to deal with spatial data and the ability to deal with data in general with R, it's just the way of the world these days. So super important. As we're thinking about other projects, it looks like this project is taking some folks to Palau to do some work on seagrasses. We have, there's another bit with the seagrass amphibiont. We work on some of that with the eelgrass and Long Island Sound ourselves. There are, again, a number of other projects here. It's great to kind of know what all is there and seeing if there's something that where you really have a topical alignment. Don't just look for the name on the door. If we're looking at this one at MBL, for instance, June 14th to August 14th, okay, this is, the program, but we would want to look at specifically what do we have for specific projects this year if we can find it. They've got a bunch of things on, the stipend and the housing. Okay, they've got, so like MBL is great because they already have some dorms on site and a little bit of a travel allowance. That's really great. You should try to apply for this one before the priority consideration date. That said, if you're seeing this video after the priority acceptance date, but before March 10th, still apply. You should still apply for this. You really have to think about the fact that this is a little bit of a numbers game and put your applications in. So this is, certainly something that we would say again, you're going to need to make a account on ETAP. So it's going to be the same one. You're going to have to, get yourself uh, set up in this NSF system that'll again help you to have a centralized location and apply for a bunch of these that are the NSF level opportunities. All this said and done, there are some others that I'm going to scroll down a little bit to talk about a few others that might not be NSF REU programs, but still are paid programs. So this is another 10-week program out of Harbor Branch in Florida. Application deadline is March 1st. Awards are announced April 1st. So you have a pretty good idea as to what you'll be doing and where you'll be going by then. It looks like this one actually starts at mid-May. So if you go to a school that start that finishes up a little bit later, you might need to negotiate some start date a little bit there. But the end date of the 24th of July is really quite early. So that again, these are going to vary a little bit. It looks like you actually need 3 letters of reference submitted to by faculty members. So I said 2 earlier, but the third letter is really something that could be really important. Got to look at these application requirements. In this case, there's a fillable PDF form. So if we open that, this is going to have all the usual things: your school name, your university name, and again, preferred mentors. That means you're going to need to go back in and take a look. Oh, who's got an actual project this year? This is where, you look back at that. If you clicked on this too quickly, you would have missed the fact that there are a bunch of mentors for the summer. So they are, certainly, listing whether they're accepting interns or not. So even if you're interested in warm water aquaculture, too bad Dr. Davis is not taking anybody for this summer. So make sure that you take that seriously because if they put up that they're not taking anybody, they're really not taking anybody. But that said, there are some, other really great programs. So like thinking about Dr. Willis's work, that's oh wow, we're producing fin fish for food and sport fish enhancement. Let's learn more about that. So this is going to bring you into what's going on between these two professors and the general, feed enhancements that they're trying to do and working on. It looks like specifically Florida Pompano. Really interesting work, and perhaps working on a couple of others with red drum and bonefish and tarpon. This is something that, wow, if you're really interested in this, this is the kind of thing that you would want to make sure you put Dr. Willis or in that case, Dr. Larimore down. So those would be the potential for, again, well, it says Susan Larimore is not taking somebody, but if you're interested in that, you're going to make sure you end up with Dr. Wills, excuse me. As you're looking through these lists, again, looking at, oh, wow, okay, there might be some anti-tumor and inflammatory activities. These are isolated from sponges and corals. This probably means you're spending a lot of bench time. So I doubt that you'll be going into the field. This is probably something that is done entirely at a bench. This is how people can be a marine biologist and not be a diver. So still really incredible. Incredible work. There's a lot to be learned from these defense chemicals in particular. So again, this is a really great way to kind of go through and piece these things through to go look at, okay, well, what is my interest and what would be something that would align with somebody that's accepting interns and is working on a topic that I might find really, interesting and would help me potentially build this network that I need to do for my career. So there are quite a few people, which means there are probably quite a few interns. So this is a good one to think about as we're going through. I always bring up CERC. I know the Smithsonian Environmental Research Center has been advertising that they're taking interns this summer. Incredible place to do work for the summer. In Maryland, I'd also recommend the other Smithsonian opportunities. So they've got this separate system that they do that's not the NSF one. But again, like you're going to need to probably either look at try to see if you can still get onto this January 22nd uh, virtual information session just in case. And, make sure you also go through the FAQs page. Looking at this, like they've got this internship opportunities list already. They've got folks who are doing living shorelines work and doing island restoration. So if you're into restoration like me, this would have been something that would have really jazzed me when I was your age. There is some summer science writing. If you are somebody who is not able to get somewhere, it looks like this will take a virtual applicant, which is interesting. Uh, and then there are some others that are, if we were just to kind of look into the summer internships in general, again, they should probably have the list of internship topics. Here it is. And we would go through, and again, this is going to be the type of thing that you're going to want to go through. I was always really interested in marine invasions, so I'd be looking at, okay, wow, you work with Greg Wurris's lab and work with Amy Freestone. What an incredible opportunity. But looking back, this was openings for 2022. So this is probably not, it's probably very similar, but it may not be up to date. So you're going to want to kind of look through these, see if there's somebody that's working on global change. If you want to take a greater look at methane work, this is pretty cool. Uh, but again, it has to be something that aligns with your interest. The only thing I can tell anybody is kind of the mechanics of how to do it and a little bit about how to, specifically navigate this overall piece. If we want to look at eligibility, typically these are going to be folks who are current undergraduates. Let's see. Oh, they will take it master's students or students who have recently graduated from undergraduate or master's programs. So that's incredible. So if you are like, oh shucks, I just graduated or I'm going to be graduating this year, still apply for this. This is one where you could still apply that's absolutely an incredible way to go. Now, the one that I really enjoyed, and again, this is going to go into the overall like how to apply piece. So let's go back into that. Um, this is going to take you into the Smithsonian specific system. So this is the SOLA at the si.edu. This is going to bring you into that overall kind of again, new account portal to create an account. You should be planning ahead on these things. The great part about getting signed up for all of these is, particularly with the Smithsonian one, there are other opportunities for undergraduates and graduate students to apply for fellowships, and you already have an account. So you typically want to make an account with a professional style email. For me, that would be, sciprofco@gmail.com. And so that, that's not, it's something that someone can see that that's somebody who's, professional. Certainly you don't want to use something that would be less so. I understand that, also not necessarily signing up with your university email that might get yanked also makes sense. So thinking back to some of the other Smithsonian opportunities, I always tell folks that you should keep an eye out for the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute because every year they actually do some uh, workshops as well, and a lot of these other places do as well. If you're trying to develop new skills, those workshops and summer courses can be really incredible. So if we're thinking about, all right, what kinds of opportunities might be around for internships, there are, some specific um, projects that are available here. Thinking about like, identifying physiological constraints on calls in Tungara frogs, that could be really interesting because you're looking at energetics, you're looking at a lot of different types of ways where you need to see how they're constrained in this way. Well, there's a extensive description of what they're looking at and what they're looking at for mentoring you. Um, when it comes to applying for these types of opportunities, going back, we scroll further down and we go, okay, well, there are a bunch of opportunities, but where do I go? Oh no. Well, going back to that SOLA, you can certainly still explore opportunities and find some very specific internships that might be available. This can be a little bit of a labyrinth. So being able to find these things can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge. Now, that said, there are some upcoming sessions for the overall academic appointment. So I do recommend getting on to these webinars because it will help to get this information out there. So they got some Smithsonian wide. Well, let's go ahead and go back to, I think I said the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute. There are a couple of different internship programs. So there's this one that's available to just Panamanian students. So if you're Panamanian, deben aplicar es an active internship program para su pasantía. When it comes to this, you've got it looks like donors open to all nationalities. And again, there's another one up here, this bridge internship program, which it looks as though these are still trying to find folks by looks like last year. So some of these things are still up there. If we just go back to this dry internship program, they have the full piece on kind of what's going on with this, but this just circles us back to this and provides that you get into the SOLA system. If you're thinking about some others, again, a lot of these labs, like Dauphin Island Marine Lab, will have their specific internships just up in their employment section. So if you wanted to go and work at Dauphin Island in Alabama, they have an environmental education internship that's due March 1st. It looks as though, all right, they've got a 9-week session. They've got a $4,000 stipend and $500 travel allowance. as well as full room and board in the dorms, which is really great because that's food and lodging completely taken care of. So it's nice when it's explicit as to what other pieces that they're providing. And you, again, you just have a chance to kind of look at that. The other opportunity there was the Fisher's Ecology Lab. This is Dr. Sean Powers. He's looking for some specifics and looking specifically for a 6 month commitment. So this is a little bit deeper when it comes to the type of internship, and these exist as well. Heading back out for some that aren't necessarily listed yet, I always recommend the Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowship at my alma mater. This is the University of Rhode Island. They are still looking at funding. They're still waiting to find out if this were to go. It would be starting June 16th to August 1st. So it'd be a 7 month internship. But they do have a weekly stipend. They do house you. There's a meal subsidy. I happen to work at this campus for a year, and it's just an incredible place to spend some time. But you do have a little bit of a later application date. Again, the funding is not secured for Serfo yet this year, but they particularly like to bring students in who are outside of the University of Rhode Island. University of Rhode Island has its own internal internship system for their Coastal Fellows program that's only available to URI students. You should absolutely be checking about what types of on-campus internships are available at your university as well. But again, I always recommend taking a further read. I will continue to compile an additional list and additional recommendations when it comes to this. And I look forward to helping folks to consider these options. And I'll be doing some roundtables as we get closer to that time. So thank you for your time today. I look forward to continuing to talk about this ability to do additional professional development for folks. And I really wish everybody the best of luck this year.